I now invite ICOMOS to present the nomination of the Cambodian memorial sites from Center of Repression to Place of Peace and Reflection, Cambodia. But before I give the floor to the Secretariat, Mr. Balsamo, please.
Thank you, Chair. We received a fatwa or notification concerning the evaluation of the Cambodian memorial sites from centers of repression to places of peace and reflection, and this is to be found on page 9 of document INF 8B4. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Balsamo. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. This is the presentation of the ICOMOS evaluation of Cambodian memorial site from centers of repression to place of peace and reflection. The ICOMOS report can be found in document INF 8B1 on page 236 of the English version and page 96 of the French version. On this evaluation, ICOMOS has received a letter on factual errors and has acknowledged some of these errors. The Cambodian memorial sites are comprised of 3 component parts, which portray the abuses of human rights by the Khmer Rouge regime between 1971 and 1979. In April 1975, the Khmer Rouge occupied the capital and rapidly established a nationwide security system to repress opposition and impose a new social order on the Cambodian people. This was a system of immense violence, torture, and execution that impacted the lives of every Cambodian. The serial nomination demonstrates this widespread experience. Following the end of the Khmer Rouge period, the extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia documented this traumatic experience. The Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum maintains an extensive archive of records and others collection. Since 1979, these sites have been memorialized and conserved. The 3 component parts represent the historical narrative from the beginning of the crime to the detention and mass killing. The former M13 prison site is associated with the initial phase of the repression and violence, and the 2 other sites are the former S21 interrogation prison, Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum, and it is associated execution site, Choeng Ek Genocidal Center. The individual known as Duch Kaingwek Eav was one of the key people who implemented the ideology of the regime and is associated with the 3 nominated component parts. The Cambodian memorial sites are evidence of the Khmer Rouge regime, which perpetrated one of the most serious abuses of human rights through a repressive system of imprisonment, interrogation, tortures, and execution. The 3 component parts illustrate the essential stages of the Khmer Rouge security system and represents hundreds of such centers and execution sites throughout Cambodia. The Khmer Rouge regime impacted every aspect of Cambodian life through imprisonment, transfer, and forced labor. It resulted in the death of 1/4 to 1/3 of the population of Cambodia. The nominated sites have become places of memory and remembrance, demonstrating the movement from repression to peace and reflection. Within this comparative analysis, ICOMOS notes that the extraordinary chambers of the Court of Cambodia found that S21 and Choeng Ek stood out among all security centers due to their intimate and direct connection to the Central Khmer Rouge leadership and policy. The justification for including component part A as part of the serial nomination is less obvious. However, the argument that the 3 components represent stages of the system is compelling, and this was an early experimental site for Duke methods. The series is nominated only on the basis of Criterion 6. The events in question for this nomination are of universal significance. The violence of the regime constitutes one of the most egregious human rights violations of the 20th century. The Khmer Rouge conflict and its victims have been commemorated at these and other places since the regime was ousted from Phnom Penh in January 1979. The nominated property demonstrates Criterion 6. ICOMOS considers that the condition of authenticity and integrity of the nominated series and of each of the component parts have been met. The boundaries and buffer zones for all 3 component parts are satisfactory. but are tightly drawn and may need to be adjusted in the future in light of the new archaeological discoveries through a minor boundary modification request. The legal protection is sufficient but needs to be augmented by completing the relevant master plans as a priority. Also urgent is to incorporate the requirements for heritage impact assessment into the legal framework. The management system is adequate and several key actions will be advanced through the recently agreed upon KOICA UNESCO grant program. It is urgent to establish the practical operation of the coordinated management mechanism. The state party has developed commendable documentation on the property and its associated events. The state of conservation is generally good, although it remains vulnerable due to urban development, flooding, natural deterioration, and the development of tourism infrastructure. Here is a summary of the ICOMOS evaluation of the proposed outstanding universal value of the nominated property. To conclude, ICOMOS recommends that the Cambodian memorial site from centers of repression to places of peace and reflection be inscribed on the well-tested list on the basis of Criterion 6. ICOMOS has included a number of further recommendations in the draft decision to support the long-term conservation of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Balsamo. Thank you, ICOMOS, for your presentation. I now invite you to adopt the draft decision 47.8b.14. But before doing so, we would like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendments on the draft decision proposed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous n'avons pas reçu d'amendement au projet de décision 47.8b.14. Merci.
Thank you so much. Are there any comments? I see none. So, if the committee agreed to adopt to para 1, I see none objection. Adopt. If the committee agreed to adopt para 2, I see none objection. Adopt. We see the para 3. If the committee agreed to adopt para 3, I see none objection. Adopt. Is the committee agreed to adopt para 4? I see none objection. Adopt. Let's move to para 5. No. Is this? Okay. I therefore declare the draft decision 47.8b.14 adopted. Thank you. Let me congratulate Cambodia on behalf of the entire committee for the approval of the extension of this property. Cambodia, you have the floor for a brief 2-minute statement. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président, merci. À cette occasion mémorable, le Premier ministre du Cambodge souhaite adresser un message à vous tous au nom de notre nation. Je vous remercie.
Mr. Chair of the World Heritage Committee, distinguished members of the committee and experts, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is with deep emotion and profound gratitude that I stand before you today on behalf of the royal government and the people of Cambodia. The inscription of the Cambodian memorial sites, from centers of repressions to places of peace and reflections, on the World Heritage list is not only a recognition of a site, but of a painful history, and above all, of the extraordinary resilience of the Cambodian peoples. These sites bear witness to the millions of innocent lives lost during one of the darkest chapters of our nation's history, and to the devastating consequences of hatred, violence, and the denial of human dignity. Yet, despite this painful past, Cambodia has chosen the path of reconciliation and peace. These former centers of repression have been transformed into places of remembrance, education, and hope, where future generations can learn the true value of peace and respect for life. After the fall of the Pol Pot genocidal regimes, Cambodia now stands as a peaceful and prospering nation, with a young generation committed to dignity and reconciliations. This inscription sends a universal message that even after unspeakable tragedies, nations can rise again, not by forgetting, but by remembering and transforming memories into a force for peace. On behalf of the people of Cambodia, I extend our profound appreciations to the World Heritage Committee, ICOMOS, ICC-ROM, and all experts and partners whose guidance and support made this possible. May this inscription serve as a lasting reminder that peace must always be defended. From the darkest chapters of history, we can draw strength to build a better future for humanity. Thank you, and Somakun.
Congratulations again.